Fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to present today. I'm very happy to kick us off on this topic. I'm ICRC's Environment and Climate Change Advisor, meaning that I support the organization on environmental sustainability projects and how to integrate climate risk into our program and operations. As probably most of you know, ICRC is a humanitarian organization that is bringing assistance and protection to people exposed to conflict or other situations of violence. Let me just see if the presentation will work. Perfect. I thought that to get us started, I will just talk a little bit or frame a little bit the topic of energy in the ICRC. As you will see on the graph, obviously, and you all know this and have this probably in your personal experience, energy is definitely an essential aspect of our premises in the field, but it comes with a cost today. It comes with a cost whether we are using electricity from the grid or whether we are using diesel generators in the areas where there is no or only intermittent access to electricity. In the ICRC, we estimate that overall this cost us between 11 and 12 million per year, grid and generator both combined. But energy is obviously also becoming a major topic in our humanitarian programs. The graph you see on the bottom part of the slide actually shows the number of water and habitat programs in the ICRC that have an energy component, so that's the bar in orange, versus those that have not, the bar in blue just below. And as you can see, the part of the projects that have an energy component have grown over the past years, and today we estimate that about 40% of our water and habitat programs have an energy component. We don't only see energy in water and habitat projects. Obviously, we also see energy aspects in livelihood projects, in cash-based assistance, etc. And this is essentially because energy has become an enabler for many other essential services that we also support in the field, whether we're talking about health, water distribution, or many other programs that we have. What we are also seeing as an underlying factor, I guess an underlying factor, is that as more and more of our operations actually take place in urban areas as opposed to the rural areas that we were more active in the past, energy is becoming more and more important because it is a central piece of the complex interlinkages of essential services that we see and that are characteristic of urban areas. And I will come back to that at the end of the presentation to talk a little bit about what the ICRC is doing in Gaza around energy. But obviously today, why are we talking about decarbonizing the energy? It's obviously because we are much too much, if I can say so, relying on diesel and other forms of fossil energy in the field. What you see on the graph that just appeared, the pie chart, is the ICRC's greenhouse gas emissions in 2020. And when we measure our greenhouse gas emissions, we measure all emissions. So both what I call direct emissions is in this graph, which I interpret as being both the energy that we consume in premises and cars. So it's both, for those who are familiar with it, Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions in the greenhouse gas protocol. And then indirect emissions will be all other emissions from our travel, our supply chain, freight, employee commute, etc. What you see in the graph is obviously this big red part here, which is directly greenhouse gas emissions related to the energy we consume in our premises. So this is both electricity and diesel, and the pink part is the fuel that we consume in our vehicles. So obviously all of our direct emissions are directly related to our consumption of energy. But it's not the only impact that energy consumption has in the ICRC, we also see that it's actually embedded throughout several categories of our indirect emissions. So, for example, in our supply chain of relief items, because we are distributing charcoal, coal, or other forms of energy to our beneficiaries, there is 3% of these emissions that are actually related to the production of these energies. 43% of the greenhouse gas emissions of our construction and sanitation projects are directly related to energy components. So aspects like building a generator, providing solar panels, that represents about half of our construction and sanitation emissions. And almost all of our emissions that come from the use of distributed products are due to energy. This is because we are choosing to account for emissions that happen when beneficiaries burn the coal, the charcoal, or the firewood that we have been providing to them in our programs. One aspect that we cannot quantify yet is the amount of energy that it's the amount of cash that beneficiary use for energy. So we are well aware that under this part of financial assistance, there is also a percentage of energy-related emissions. We're just not able to really quantify that today. So why are we looking at decarbonizing the energy aspect in humanitarian settings? Well, it's definitely driven by the climate change agenda and this aspect that we see on the graph. In 2017, 2018, the ICRC launched an energy challenge, which is looking at both of these aspects, the aspects of premises and the aspects of programs. And I will be bringing you a little bit of examples of what we have done over the past few years in terms of energy. Before I dive into that, I also want to stress that obviously it's not just because of climate change that we're looking at decarbonizing our energy supply. We will hear about it throughout the next hour and a half or so, but sustainable energy in general brings a lot of opportunities to the humanitarian sector, whether it is about lowering the overall cost of energy to the sector and also reducing our dependence notably on diesel, which in certain contexts, particularly conflict-driven contexts, can be hard to also source. So my first example today is from an ICRC-owned warehouse in Niamey. It's our corn soya blend warehouse in Niamey. Corn soya blend is a sort of therapeutic food that is used to prevent malnutrition, particularly in infants. And it is a product that has to be stored at temperatures below 30, so 30 degrees. But in Niamey, during notably the heat wave months, temperatures can go up to 47 or even more degrees. The ICRC decided, though, to really try and build a warehouse that could withstand those temperatures, keep temperatures of 30 degrees inside the warehouse with a minimal input from air conditioning. And actually, the project, it's a pilot project in our organization. It has really worked. So you see the pictures here of the warehouse as it is today. We just have one air conditioning unit that we use in really the highest of the highest temperatures during the heat wave months, but throughout the year, otherwise the warehouse stays at 30 degrees Celsius. And this was achieved by relatively simple methods of building second walls inside the warehouse, obviously having space in between the walls to isolate from the hot temperatures outside. We obviously have the double metal entrance doors that you see there that are painted in white, which is a relatively simple approach, and many others that I can send details about if you're interested. I'm bringing this example up for two reasons. I think when we're talking about decarbonization of energy systems, it's important to not only look at solar energy, but actually energy efficiency in general, and reducing the amount of energy that we have to use or that we consume is actually a key aspect of decarbonizing our electricity, our energy, sorry, supply. Another learning that we can take from this example is maybe the cost and return on investment aspect. The warehouse did cost, actually the investment was exactly the double in comparison to building a standard warehouse using standard solutions and most notably air conditioning solutions. But there is a return on investment after 5 or 6 years. And I know that we're going to hear back about this upfront investment being a challenge. In the humanitarian sector for this decarbonization approach, but it is one that, well, it is one of the aspects or the environmental areas that we are working in where we actually have the chance of having a return on investment. And I think that this was, to me, quite important to insist on. Another energy efficiency example, and here much more closer to actual humanitarian intervention. This picture is from Ukraine, so there a different setting where obviously the cold winter months are more problematic than summer. What you're seeing on this picture is distribution by the ICRC of insulation material for people's homes, homes that were largely impacted by the conflict. And areas where people have, where it is harder and harder for people to actually access, afford coal for heating. This project came after another project that we also did in Ukraine of distributing LED lights that people could install in their homes, from the same constatation that people had a harder time actually affording the electricity. And so the thinking of the project team here was that actually rather than distributing coal or supporting people with cash to pay their electricity bills, well, let's try to actually reduce their energy needs in the first place. And it was the LED distribution was a very successful project. It was recognized as well by the local government as supporting their energy efficiency actions. The insulation, we actually had different difficulties in terms of also realizing that we also needed to support people in the proper installation of the insulation material for it to actually bring well, the right results. But I think that I'm really stressing these two energy efficiency example because I want you to keep that message with you today, that energy efficiency is also an option, and it is an option even in our context and in our humanitarian operations. I obviously can't talk about decarbonizing without bringing the example of a solar project that we have done in the ICRC. We have done many at various scales, but also various levels of complexity. I think the one that I'm bringing to you today is a rather mixed project in terms of results. This is the example of our microgrid installation in our warehouse in Nairobi in Kenya. The microgrid is what you see in the container box here on the picture. It is linked to the solar panels that are on the roof of the warehouse that you see on the other part of the picture. It is also linked to the national grid and to a backup diesel generator. And inside the microgrid itself, we have a large amount of lithium-ion batteries. The purpose of the microgrid itself being to maximize at all times the use of the solar energy that we get from the panels, while absolutely minimizing the amount of time that we need to turn on the generator, even during grid interruptions. why am I saying that it was a mixed success in the end, this project? Well, it's a success from the sense that it is working, and that we went from a situation where we would use approximately 20% of the energy from the diesel generator to a situation where now we use only 1 or 2% of our electricity that comes from the generator. So we have achieved, I think, the ambition of the project. But the project was much more difficult than we thought when we set out to do it. And this is because microgrids are a very new type of technology, but also even inside the microgrid, these lithium-ion batteries actually represented challenges both during the transport, during the storage in Nairobi, and even still now in terms of safety. We have regular discussions with firefighters, for example, in Nairobi, just keeping to remind them that we have these lithium-ion batteries, and in case of fires, typically it is there's certain specific procedures that needs to be followed. So I think it's also, one of the challenges that decarbonizing our energy supply represents is actually having these capacities inside. We use a lot of diesel, also because we are used to that, and because our staff has the capacity to handle diesel generators, to maintain them, to operate them, and we will have to retrain a part of our workforce to actually get more used to using these kind of new technologies. And that for us is a key part of the energy challenge, because it's really what we see as a key hurdle in the organization. I don't want to leave on just talking about challenges, because I strongly believe that actually energy and sustainable energy is a source of great opportunities as well for the sector. This is an example of a prison in Zimbabwe, where and we've done that across many countries by now, where the ICRC has actually built a biogas system. The project didn't come from a need for energy. It came from the need of actually managing the human waste that was coming out of the prison. But we found that actually biogas systems, so producing biogas from that human waste, is a fantastic opportunity, because it can bring biogas to the kitchens of the prison, so enabling actually kitchens to cook proper hot meals to detainees. And it also avoids that it reduces the cost of firewood to the kitchen, and also reduces the chances of firewood being burned while still moist, which obviously also has health implications with the fumes in the kitchen, etc. And why I wanted to show this example is because I really see that sustainable energy has an opportunity to make us think at the rather sustainable level how we can manage environment, social, and economics in a symbiotic way almost. And as promised, I wanted to end with Gaza. In Gaza, the ICRC has launched last year what we call our Gaza Resilience Program. To make it really short, what you see on the slide is the result of a resilience study, where we looked at the interlinkages of different aspects around essential services in Gaza. And what you see on the picture, at the very central part of the picture, is obviously the power network. It is becoming more and more obvious today to the ICRC that energy is central and key if we are talking about resilience of people and resilience of infrastructures and essential services. And more to that, what we are doing in Gaza now is actually developing a greater number of redundancies, centralized installations, improving the management of distribution, which all leads to increasing the efficiency of the energy system and actually reducing the fuel usage overall. So also this piece about decarbonizing. What we have also found, and what I find fascinating, is that as a livelihood opportunity, energy is becoming a livelihood opportunity for people that we are supporting in the field, and particularly through such type of projects, we can increase that opportunity for people. So this whole prosumer aspect that we see in Europe is also actually becoming key in our context, in the context where we work. So just a very last slide on the key takeaways. I think, what I wanted to bring to you today is really this thinking about not just energy in premises, but energy as aid in the field. Think about energy efficiency as a complement to renewable energies when we talk about decarbonizing our energy. I guess. Thank you so much. And I will hand it over or back to you, Ranisha.